He sold the ranch I built with my own hands for $5. He thought he destroyed me that day, but he didn't know that the land he stole was already wired for his downfall. When people say marriage is built on trust, they never talk about what happens when that trust burns down. I was married to Ryan for 10 years. 10 years of love, laughter, and late night plans about the future. Or so I thought. I grew up on dusty acres outside Austin. When my father passed, he left me a stretch of land that everyone called worthless. But I saw potential, a dream. I worked every weekend stacking lumber, sketching designs, and finally built a 40-acre ranch that turned into a retreat center for artists and travelers. Within 5 years, it was valued at over $2 million. Ryan, my husband, liked to call himself my business manager. In truth, he just handled some paperwork while I built the empire. He was charming and confident, the kind of man who walked into a room and made everyone feel like he belonged there. But behind that smile, there was a secret. It started small. A lipstick stain on his shirt that he blamed on a client hug, late meetings that ended long after midnight. I wanted to believe him. Marriage makes you blind to patterns you don't want to see. Then one evening, I opened his email by mistake. The subject line read, "Can't wait to be Mrs. Henderson soon. Kissy face." My stomach dropped. I scrolled through messages between Ryan and Claire, his assistant. Photos of them on the ranch's porch, laughing in my favorite chair. Plans to move in once it's all hers. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I read every line because information is power, and I needed all of it. 2 weeks later, Ryan suggested we restructure the ranch's ownership for tax reasons. I smiled and said, "Sure, honey, let's do it together." That night, while he slept, I called my attorney, Karen. She was an old friend of my father, the kind of woman who could smell a con from a mile away. We worked quietly for days, transferring control of the ranch's legal rights into a holding trust, one only I could access. On paper, Ryan still looked like a co-owner, but legally, he was just a figurehead. I didn't tell him, because sometimes revenge needs time to marinate. Weeks later, I watched him grow bolder. He stopped pretending. He'd stroll in late, smelling of perfume. He'd make calls on the porch, whispering Claire's name like a promise. And then, one afternoon, I heard him say the words that changed everything. "Yeah, babe, the ranch will be yours soon. I'll take care of it." That's when I realized he wasn't just cheating. He was planning to steal the life I built. The next morning, he walked into the kitchen holding a stack of documents. "Just sign these, Lily," he said, casual as ever. "It's just refinancing the property loan. We'll save on interest." I looked him in the eye, smiled sweetly, and signed every page. Because what he didn't know is that Karen and I had already voided any transfer rights to the land. He thought I was naive. I let him think that. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the county registrar. "Ma'am," the clerk said, "a property under your name was sold for $5. Is that correct?" My hands went cold. Ryan had actually done it. He had sold my ranch, my $2 million ranch, to Claire for $5. I remember the world spinning. The man I'd trusted with everything had turned into a thief wearing my wedding ring. I didn't scream. I didn't chase him. I poured a glass of wine, sat on the porch he once called ours, and smiled, because the trap was already set. When Ryan and Claire arrived the next morning, she wore sunglasses and a smug little grin. They stood at the gate, papers in hand, laughing about how easy it was. I walked out calmly. "Congratulations," I said. "You just bought a dream." Clay waved the deed at me. Correction, my dream. Ryan's smirk faded when he saw the look in my eyes. That quiet kind of calm you only get when you know the ending before the movie starts. Later that day, he got a call from the bank, then one from the county, then from his lawyer. Each one telling him the same thing. that the property he'd sold wasn't legally his to sell. By sunset, his smile was gone. Claire's car sped away, leaving a trail of dust. I didn't have to say a word, because sometimes silence screams louder than revenge. But I wasn't done. He still thought he could talk his way out of it, that I'd forgive him like before. That night, he came home shouting about misunderstandings and technical errors. I listened, let him finish, then slid a single envelope across the table. Inside were printed copies of his emails to Claire, every message, every photo, every promise. His face went pale. "I can explain," he muttered. "No need," I said softly. "You already did. In writing." Then I stood, walked to the door, and added, "By the way, tomorrow morning the sheriff will want to ask you about fraudulent transfer of property. You might want to wear something nice." That night was the first time in years I slept peacefully. But what I didn't know was that Ryan wasn't done either, and the next move he made would test every ounce of strength I had left. The morning after he tried to sell my ranch, I woke up to silence. No birds, no hum of his truck, no coffee brewing in the kitchen. Just the kind of stillness that feels heavy, like the air itself knows something is about to happen. I went outside and found tire marks across the driveway. Ryan was gone. So was my pickup, and every file from the office computer, missing. He'd stolen my data, my client contacts, and whatever little dignity he thought I had left. For the first time, I felt anger burn through the calm. I had trapped him legally, yes, but emotionally, he'd still found a way to hurt me. That was about to change. 2 days later, I got an alert from my bank. $48,000 withdrawn from our joint account, and a new account opened in Claire's name. He wasn't just reckless, he was desperate. That's the thing about people who cheat. Once they start losing control, they make mistakes that dig their own grave. So I stayed quiet and watched. I let him move his money, his lies, his life, all into her world. What he didn't know was that I already frozen our joint assets under the fraud investigation clause my lawyer filed the day he forged my signature. Every transaction he made after that, automatically flagged. A week passed, then one evening, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up the driveway. 2 officers stepped out. They weren't here for me. "Is Ryan Henderson home?" I smiled. "He doesn't live here anymore." Turns out, he tried to sell another property, one that didn't even exist. The buyer pressed charges. The sheriff had a warrant. When they finally tracked him down at Claire's apartment, he was drunk, furious, and swearing it was all his wife's setup. And in a way, he wasn't wrong. A few days later, I went into town for groceries, and there he was, outside the courthouse, in wrinkled clothes, shouting into his phone. He looked nothing like the man I'd once married. When he saw me, his face twisted with rage. "You ruined me," he shouted. "No," I said quietly. "You ruined yourself. I just stopped cleaning up your mess." He laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? I still have friends in this town. I'll tell everyone you stole from me." I took a step closer. "Then tell them, Ryan. Tell them how you forged my signature, how you transferred $2 million worth of property for $5. Tell them about Claire. I'll wait." He didn't, because bullies never shout when the truth is louder than their lies. The months that followed were strangely peaceful. The investigation wrapped up, the fraud charges stuck. Ryan pled guilty to avoid prison time, but his reputation, gone. His job, gone. Claire? She left the state. Turns out she didn't love him enough to stick around for a court hearing. As for me, I stayed. I rebuilt. The ranch became something new, a refuge for women who'd been through the same kind of betrayal I had. We turned those 40 acres into a space for healing and second chances. Every morning, I'd watch the sunrise spill across the hills and think, this is mine, not because of money or property, but because I earned it back, piece by piece. One afternoon, months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a short note scrawled in Ryan's handwriting. You think you've won, Lily, but without me, you'll always be alone. For the first time in a long while, I laughed. Because he was wrong. Completely wrong. I wasn't alone. I was finally free. That night, I went out to the ranch gate, the same spot where Ryan and Claire once stood laughing about their stolen dream. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and crimson. I whispered, "You wanted a ranch, Ryan. You got a lesson instead." Then I locked the gate for the last time, walked back to the house, and checked my bank account. The balance blinked on the screen. $2 million, untouched, protected, and finally, truly mine. Because while he was busy selling dreams for $5, I was busy buying my freedom with silence and patience. People often ask if I ever forgave him. The truth? Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about closing the door without hate and never looking back. He sold the ranch for $5, but what he really lost was me. And that's a debt he'll never be able to repay.